Iwakura came out recently, and it's honestly kind of priced at $40 without a sale for something around like 10 hours long. Though P-Cube stuff gets large discounts after a year or two anyways, like I think I got Bustafellas at like $8 or something. Anyways, it's going to be like a short one, and there might be slight spoilers up to chapter 2. Iwakura is some soft Yuri title with a classic setting where you get to this mansion, and you can tell some fuck shit is going on in there, and most of the fun is figuring it out until like the explosive finale. Except what was going on was already kind of shown by the end of the first chapter and pretty much cemented by the second chapter. The rest is mainly how the main character Ichiko processes her emotions and how she's going to deal with it and what's happening in this mansion. It's like what the fuck's happening. It's kind of like Steins Gate where you know how it's all going to go early on, and you're reading the other half just seeing how Okabe reacts to everything that's happening, except the pacing is much slower in Iwakura and the amount of interactions between the less important characters are set to a minimum. Like most story points you've seen in other mansion like oriented mysteries or something you might see in here. Like there's parts of where X or Y could technically be a type of reveal, but honestly would you really expect it not to happen in this kind of thing? It's like no, it's like oh you see a cult, yeah. Oh you see something blowing up, yeah. It makes sense. Oh, there's an underground basement? Yeah, probably. Some characters don't get a sprite. The best they get is like a black and white section that's not really CG. Think of it more like a storyboard panel. And honestly, that part was pretty neat and happens a decent amount to get the atmosphere right, but it's also not in the CG gallery at all for some reason. Like, why is it not there? Like halfway through, I was wondering why the secretary art wasn't around anymore until I remembered, oh, her ass was just in the storyboards, like she had nothing else. And that's with a lot of characters, they're just kind of there because it makes sense. Like, of course the mansion probably has some kind of guard. Like, of course, there's a huge ass garden. Or of course there's gonna be like a garden there to maintain it. Yeah, it makes sense. Basically, it felt like they would be more important to the overall plot, but they just helped with the atmosphere and that's it. Some of them have a purpose to the overarching plot, but some of them don't really have anything to do outside of like there's this one scene that can hit on something else happening over there. It's like, alright, I guess. But like I said before, most of everything gets explained or implied in the first two chapters, so you have like another half of just the two main characters interacting with each other and not much development with the house or what's going on. And I'll go over that through the spoilers, so it won't be that long. The main three characters are Ichiko, Aria, and Amane. Ichiko is the main character that tends to Aria and just gets employed by Amane, right? The premise is Ichiko is an orphan and Amane offers her a job because he supposedly likes her art. That was part of like the stuff that she had to sell in this orphanage thing, right? And I was like, alright, my daughter likes art. You do art really well. You can paint really well. Or I guess at that point his drawing is like, alright, let's go, right? She basically becomes a housekeeper of the mansion, but he already laid off most of the servants beforehand and just get like outside help when he needs it. Aria isn't fond of her at first, but they get around to it eventually. There's Sui, who does the cooking and has her own like her character art and her own ending, but she also is not really all that important, which is kind of surprising. And a lot of that is because she's meant to be like the refreshing normal one of the group that's separate from like the rest of the mess of that mansion. If this wasn't a Yuri title, Sui would probably have like a good chance of being the main love interest since the drama she gets inflicted to the servants themselves. Like, alright, makes sense. Anyways, most of the characters are sometimes more about like cliche themes. Aria is the caged butterfly archetype, where she's been living with this bullshit happening all around her for so long that it takes forever for her to realize like, hey, this is not normal and it's not what you want to do. It goes in steps, a little bit at a time per chapter, mainly like after chapter 2, so I guess chapter 3, right? Ichiko is the normal one that's descending into her own madness to the point that she's mentally the worst one out of the group, right? Depending on the choices you have. And Amane is just like a classic mansion host. They're always fucked up. I mean, they don't even hide it. It's right in the opening video. It's like, holy shit. Iwakura reminds me a lot of the older stuff like Nocturnal Illusion or Fatal Relations. They're like 90s, right? Except there's no H scenes and nothing too over the top for the ending. I'm pretty sure Fatal Relations ends with the mansion burning down. I think a lightning bolt hit him or something and everything went down. I'd say Nocturnal Illusion was probably more interesting than Iwakura. Just Iwakura has way better atmosphere and focus on it. Like in Nocturnal, you could randomly be doing something in the mansion and now you're talking to this girl in a well and now you're in the garden and you're talking to this vampire, like what the fuck's happening? But overall, it was really cool. But it's because the mansion and the area around it was a larger focus in Nocturnal Illusion. Like it was like its own living entity over there. Compared to Iwakura, where everything happening is because of the members inside, and that's it. The mansion itself isn't very interesting. What drew me in was the art, but really I stayed for the music. It was one of those times where I launched the game, hear whatever track was playing when I loaded up the save, and then I just started working on my own shit, and it was great. A lot of them are still background music, but it's orchestrated well, and it couples well with like the classy feeling it has. The plot actually has a pretty good emphasis on art itself at points, since that was how Ichiko was hired and had first, and her interests in drawing and painting follow her throughout the chapters. It should have gone a lot harder on that aspect, but that's my own bias. I've read a few where their art drives them to madness, but that's not what this title is going for. Like, it could have easily gone to that point in like an ending or two, but they just didn't do it. Honestly, I don't know why they wouldn't, with how the opening video shows and how they make the CGs look like paintings and all that. It's like, it was like perfect premise for it and just didn't do it. The title also just kind of gave up on some plot aspects until after the ending with the side stories, and that kind of explains what was happening with these characters. They're given to you around what I think was like in the middle of chapter 2, and there's like a lead up to it like a few chapters later if you still remember what was happening a couple chapters ago. Like, I probably wouldn't even see the connection if I didn't write my notes down. It's like, oh shit, look at this thing, this means this is this, like holy crap. But if you have it's like, there's like 2 lines, why would you even think about that, right? There's even a few clues that are placed in optional scenes, and I believe one of them is in like even the first ending. Basically, between the plot, there's times where you can explore the mansion, and like 90% of the time it's just flavor text, but the remaining is actually kind of important. Not immediately, but you can see the connections after a while. The funny part is, it took me a while to figure out how to continue the plot because I had no idea how to continue afterwards. I had to actually look at the menu where I was like, oh yeah, your cancel buttons actually means continue. It's like, oh, okay. So I just kept on like going between each room. It's like, how do I continue the plot? It's pretty dumb. Anyways, it's one of those things where you're getting too focused on one mystery when there's like an underlying one, but unlike something like Yumineko where the mystery is in plain view but people are zoning on the decoy the whole time, this one is more like, we're telling you what's happening in the first chapter, you know what the mystery is with this family, but what's the actual mystery and what are you supposed to be focusing on? Like, are you supposed to focus on the gardener? He's kind of creepy. Do you focus on the guard? He's kind of an asshole. Do you focus on the phone calls? It's like, what do you focus on, right? And there is one, you have to, there's something to focus on, but the title focuses more on being like more of a suspense title than really going for the mystery. Overall, the title focuses more on the relationships between like Ichiko and Aria, and if that's what you want, then awesome, because it does it really well. All the events are just external stimuli to get them to do something, to talk to each other, just interact with each other, but doesn't really go hard on the like the artist angle, nor the madness angle in some parts of the plot. When they could have done it, they just didn't. It's still good and had fun with it, but it's more of a Yuri title with a slice of suspense, and not just a suspense title with just like a female couple around. I'm giving it a 7. I think it started a lot stronger than how it finished, but the extra scenes group up the questions you might have been wondering about, and it closes everything pretty well from what I can tell. Generally, you can go through the suspense portion to get some kind of payout, but this one's more like, okay, yeah, I can see what you're going for, I can see that, it makes sense. It's just very normal, but not like in Chaos Child where not going over the top made it way better. This one is more like, I guess, tepid. It's probably the best way to explain Iwakura's ending. It's like, alright, it's fine. It did feel like some plot points were just forgotten about until after the ending happened. I usually like those things being implied, but it does it in a way where each implication had like 1 or 2 extra angles that could have been gone either way, and that's kind of part of the fun. You know, it's fun to talk about with other people if they played. It's like, here you go. But it's like right after the ending, you get the side stories, you can read it, and you, as long as you're reading it correctly, you're like, all right, this is what was happening, and you kind of miss the points. Like, Higurashi actually does that really well, where yeah, you read one chapter, what do you think? It even does his own little extra at the end. It's like, what do you think, audience? And that it's fun. And this one, you know, really can't do it. And it pissed people off, but like Mamiya had this thing right at the end in the first part, right? I never read the second part. In the first part, it's like, hey, there's this time-gated part, and each day you can roll for a new scene that's extra, and it's very annoying. But it's like, hey, it's a little extra fun in here, and it's like, hey, if this was like, you know, time gate for 10 hours, think about it, what was happening, what's your solution, what did you think was actually happening, and then you look at it, it's like maybe it'll be more memorable because of that. But it's like, it was just here, it's like, oh, that was nice. Anyways, it's time for spoilers. So the whole mansion is part of this cult, and the premise is Aria is put as like a child of God because an incident happened and she no longer felt pain nor age. So she could technically still die, but generally she can get stabbed and be fine, and it would heal like rather quickly. We don't know how fast it was, and it depends on the injury, but generally she'd be fine like the following day. She gradually loses her powers, but no one knows why, but she's fine with it because she's kind of wants to die, some brainwash shit. I mean, technically there's a reason, but I'll talk about it later. Amane isn't really the dad. He worked with like Aria's grandfather from what I remember. He just plays the father figure to make it not seem weird that he's around this young girl the whole time. I think the dude was molested or something as a kid, but I'm not really sure. He was also considered a child of God back then, but he lost his powers. It was never explained if it was like the same powers or not, I don't know. He sees her as like a religious idol, he's pretty fucked up mentally. The secretary is into him and he plays along with it, but he doesn't really love her. I thought he loved Aria, but that wasn't really the case either since he talked about it in one of the side stories. Like he was planning to die after Aria dies, either from like the event in the end or by his own hands. And I want to say that he was just like a broken person that likes to inflict harm on others but can't really love anyone. Anyways, it's been like 16 years after the incident. Random rich people come into her house to either like see Aria or get some of her blood. Pretty sure the blood had some like healing properties, but that might have been a placebo effect. It was like a one-time story type of thing. Ichiko finds the umbilical cord and some baby socks, and that was like around the same age. Ichiko also hallucinates the baby crying, but she doesn't figure it out. They stop talking about it for like the rest of the plot, how like it was a chapter 2 and that's it. But that was still like under the assumption that like Aria was around 16 years old at the time, but she was actually 33 or something. And that reveal was meant to make you like question the last 3 things, but it's been like 2 chapters ago. It's like I said, like this reveal happened maybe like the end of chapter 3 or like the middle of 4, I forgot. You also see this picture of this girl and the younger kid in the first ending or like one of the optional scenes. I thought that was meant to be like the gardener was like her younger brother or something, and he was just pushed aside, otherwise the public would notice it like, hey, Aria never ages, and it would look weird because now he's like this old man type of thing. It's why she was never like leaves the vicinity either, or something about her health, I forgot. Now, which technically was true when she was like actually young, but then it stopped being a thing. At this point, at like chapter 3 or 4, it's kind of weird that Ichiko is still into her when Aria is like twice her age. Though it's even weird for Aria to entertain it. Anyways, Ichiko knows the cult's happening now. She finds the hidden rooms and she's kind of coerced into helping. In some of the endings, she goes kind of psycho. It's really cool in those type of endings, but otherwise she's fine. This would have been a perfect time for some like painting madness, but never went there. Like I thought she'd start using Aria's blood for paint at the minimum, but nothing happens. Throughout this time, Ichiko dislikes Amane more and more throughout the chapters and tries to like shield Aria from him since the dude's like a psycho. And there's this whole scene where she's finally finishing the painting and this amazing track starts playing, and then immediately makes it less memorable because it's used 2 more times quickly after and it just felt undeserved. It's like, why did you ruin the freaking scene? In the last ending, we figure out Aria had a child before, she had a C-section, except in the stories, Aria thinks the baby died, but really it was Amane that told her that, and he brought the baby into this orphanage. So you probably guessed it by now, Ichiko was the child. The socks and the umbilical cord is hers, and she's amazingly remembers her crying at like 5 minutes old. In the second chapter, it's very dumb. The gardener was the kid in the photo in the first ending, but it wasn't her brother. His name's Sosuke, is actually Ichiko's dad, so the one that knocked up Aria and when they were little, right? It's very okay. Now before the rest of the side stories, I thought Amane would end up being the dad, but his mental state makes him more like, it makes more sense this way. Ichiko doesn't know anything about this, so now she's dating her own mom. It's very dumb. It's funny, it's also weird. There's also a couple phone calls here and there, and you think like, oh, these are like deals with Amane, and they're like, oh, little hidden second like tertiary mystery in there, but it turns out that wasn't even the case. That was like one of the family members that was actually a part of the main branch. And it's like, hey, we want the house back, and Amane was like ignoring the whole time. So when he told her like, hey, don't pick up any calls, it wasn't for like devious things, it was like, don't pick up the damn phone call, otherwise we lose the house type of thing. It's like, all right. And that's it for the spoilers. This was meant to be a short one before the last Criminal Border comes out, but it's actually coming out tomorrow, and Six Song is also like right at the corner. Honestly, both are probably out by the time this gets pushed out. But yeah, Criminal Border's the next one, and probably one of the backlog ones afterward because I'm playing Silk Song and I don't have time to read anything at this point. I think there's like 9 in the backlog. I'll probably put them here, who knows.